Basically the same paperwork we use with the seller on a sandwich lease option. It's exactly the same paperwork, except that it's pro-seller. Okay, they're called the same things, they just have a little bit different content on them. And with, of course, the rental agreement, if they have a pet, then we use a pet agreement. And then the seller's disclosure, lead-based paint, then what I use is, if it's the first time if it's the first tenant through, I just make a copy of the previous seller's disclosure, lead-based paint. If it's the second one or third one through, then by then I fill out my own. No bank authorization, of course, they're not going to have that. So there's a few things that they don't get. No memorandum, I don't use that with them. A couple things just to keep updated with the buyers. Credit repair company. If they need credit repair, then you can make it a requirement. I use a company called leaseoptioncreditrepair.com. Is the tenant doing their part? Mortgage broker following up. You know, I use a mortgage broker and have them work with a tenant buyer to make sure that, especially as they get closer. Now, if they have their own, that's great. If not, I work with a mortgage broker who I know knows about lease options and can make sure that that deal closes at the end. What do you do to screen tenants?
Look, if you're spending a lot of time trying to screen tenant buyers, you're wasting time. I don't chase anybody. They want my house, they better be calling me. They better be after me. I don't call them and follow up with them to see if they want the property. When I screen them on the phone, they don't even see the property unless they pre-qualify. And here's my pre-qualification. I have three requisites. I want to know what they have to work with to put down. What's your credit like? Good, bad, ugly, fair? What is it? Have you had any judgments or foreclosures? And number 3, I want to know what their monthly income is. Gross or net, it doesn't matter. I can figure it out either way. Because if they're going to get into a property and have a chance of getting financed, they have to have the income. The credit is not too much of an issue unless it was a recent foreclosure and it's going to be a 3-year kind of deal and maybe, you know, it's a little too long. That could be a potential issue. But the other thing too is what they have to work with for a down payment. And I'm saying that loosely, down payment to them. I know we call it an option consideration fee. Don't confuse those terms. But we get people that call and they think it's only for rent. No, this is a lease to own. And so after they get a little bit of general brief about the property, I'll say something like, now can I ask you a couple of questions before we go any further just to make sure you qualify? And we can work with people with different situations. Plus, we typically have more than one property available, so if you tell me what you have to work with, it will determine which house you qualify for. Because he who says the number first loses. And so I am not going to tell them I need $4,000 down if they've got 6. Now look, if Ron ain't going to tell me anything and be argumentative, he ain't getting in my house. Next. It's just that simple.
Yeah, and basically for me, with the income, I don't know if you said this specifically, but whatever the rental rate is, I need to make sure they
3 to 4 times.
have 3 to 4 times that amount.
Yeah, same
is
thing.
their gross rent.
Yeah.
I mean, gross income. So, you know, if the rent is $1,000, they need to make at least $3,000 gross. I prefer, you know, $4,000 gross income and up. But that kind of helps with what they're going to need for qualifying for a mortgage, somewhere in that range. And we know that, you know, 25 to 30, you know, 3% of their income should be the most on housing, you know. So I'm going to ask that. I'm also going to, when we check their credit, one of the things for me is if they have any landlord-tenant evictions that are unpaid or unexplained, no, it's an absolute no. Now, if they have an eviction, maybe, you know, 5 years ago, and they could explain it, and there's no balance due, I'll work with them. We all have hard times in our lives, and things happen, but if you left someone hanging, another landlord, and that wasn't a priority to pay, then there's an absolute no for me.
No for me.
And if they lie on the application, everything I do when I'm looking for the application is try to find a lie. You know, I mean, everything you're doing in here is you're trying to verify that everything is valid, which is why I ask for everything on there. You see that the credit application is inside your handouts. So you can see I ask for everything. I'm looking for their bank information. I'm looking for their car information. I'm looking for everything that I might ever need just in case they aren't the right person later. So if they ever stiff me or leave, I need all of that information because I will go after them and collect from them.